Ah, yes. MSI Afterburner. You got to love it. I've used it for years and years and years and years. It's a wonderful tool to, well, see all kinds of important information about your video card right on your screen. And of course, you can use it to overclock your video card. This, though, is about using MSI Afterburner if you have an Nvidia RTX 50 series graphics card. Now, if you want to get up to 36 giga transfers per second, you want to get this MSI Afterburner unofficial update because it will allow you to push your GDDR7 memory beyond its specified limits, and that's the whole point. Just be warned, overclocking anything can damage it. Now, of course, you can understand that Nvidia really discourages the use of this, or for that matter, any overclocking, because like I said, overclocking your card could in fact void the warranty. So be very careful when you're doing that. And I wouldn't recommend doing it if you're not that experienced, because it could cause problems with the video card. There are ways, though, where you can slowly overclock it and you can look for artifacts. And if you see an artifact, for example, or a bunch of artifacts while you're benchmarking it, you can just back it off a little bit by little bit until you reach its sweet spot. Now, how much can you overclock it? Well, that completely depends on the product. It could be memory, it could be a CPU, or in this case, a video card, and you could get as much as 10+%, maybe 10 to 15%. That doesn't seem like a lot, but it is, trust me, especially when it comes to overclocking memory. 10% could equate into 5 extra frames per second, and that might be enough to just push you into that sweet zone where you can play a game at reasonable frames per second. Like maybe you want to hit 60 or 75 frames per second, but you weren't able to. But since you've overclocked it, you're okay. But again, be careful when you're doing this. I've overclocked pretty much every single thing that I've ever owned going way back. I've been at this for a very long time. Started doing video reviews in the year 2000. So trust me, I know a thing or two about overclocking. I remember using pencil tricks on AMD CPUs way back in the day to overclock them. But just be careful. But thinking back, you know, there was nothing that died because of overclocking. I remember, I think one CPU that might have failed of the very many that I've had over the years. So typically speaking, overclocking shouldn't kill whatever device you are overclocking. But again, just pay heed and take it easy, little bit by little bit. Now, let's use an RTX 5080, for example. And that would be a card which is still expensive, but it's certainly not as expensive as a 5090. Now, I am not saying to go out and get a 5080 or a 5090. I'm just using this as an example because, well, it's the topic at hand here. But if you do overclock, well, the GPU and the memory on an RTX 5080, you're going to get some really, really solid performance out of this card. But again, be careful if you are deciding to do this. Now, there's apparently a version compatibility thing here. So the update involves replacing a database file and is only compatible with MSI Afterburner version 4.6.6 beta 5 build 16555. So keep that in mind. Do you have MSI Afterburner installed, or maybe something like MSI Afterburner where you're overclocking your video card? And if so, how much more have you gotten out of it? How many more frames per second have you managed to squeeze out of it? You know, it's wonderful when you can get a product and you can just get a tad bit more out of it, because it kind of feels like you're getting something for nothing. It feels good, right?